Hello, welcome to your third day of virtual summer seminar. My name is Amy Amspaugh, and we are here for teaching arithmetic. I have taught here at Pensacola Christian Academy for the past 7 years, and in that time I've taught 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And with all three of those subjects, I've had the privilege of teaching arithmetic. I will tell you, my first year, I taught language arts, and so when I was switched over to 6th grade math, science, and history, I know the arithmetic part really scared me because I knew I had the ability to teach math, but I didn't feel like I was very fast. And so hopefully today I will share something with you that maybe will encourage our first year teachers out there to know that you've got this, you're going to be just fine. And then also maybe you are a veteran math teacher, you've taught arithmetic for a while. Hopefully I'll give you some helpful tips, something maybe you haven't thought of before, or maybe that will help you in conserving your time as a teacher. Time is precious, and so how can we make the most out of those 45 arithmetic minutes? Let's get into that today. Let's first start off by talking about 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, what I think of when I think of arithmetic and with all of those subjects, how they go together. So the nice thing about Abeka is with 4th, 5th, and 6th, and really with all of our subjects, every year starts off with a spiral review. And we can be so thankful for that. When we start off the year, whether it's 4th grade or 6th grade, you're going to start off by going over those basic math processes, thinking of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Now, thinking of our last school year, maybe you can relate to this, I'm sure you can, with COVID-19, we don't exactly know how our students' learning went at the end of the year, do we? Some of them, their grades may have really improved suddenly, and now they're coming into the school year, and we want to see if they really know those facts. So make sure at the beginning of the year when you're going over addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, don't just assume they already know it. Make sure that you really teach those concepts to them. The other thing that is gone over in all three of the 4th, 5th, and 6th grades is our linear capacity and weight flashcards. I think of numbers 15 through 53 in our stack of arithmetic concept cards. Those are gone over quite a bit. And just know, even if they are 6th graders, make sure you're really reviewing those facts. They should be able to say those in their sleep. They have them down so well. At the beginning of the year, we also go over the basic geometry shapes, and then story problems are always gone over. So those are things that are universal in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. But there are some things that are specific to the grade, and I would like to give you those at this time. So maybe if you are a brand new teacher, you know what you should be focused on. In 4th grade, our students really learn their fractions. Now, we do have a good foundation that was given to us in 3rd grade. They did learn what a fraction was, and they do know a little bit about fractions. But in 4th grade, we really get into fractions. We learn what an improper fraction is, what a proper fraction is. We learn how to add, subtract, and multiply fractions. And each of those steps, at the end, they need to learn how to reduce those fractions. They need to learn how to find a common denominator. All of those things are the biggest deal in 4th grade. So if you are a brand new 4th grade teacher, know when you get to fractions, that is your main focus, your main goal. And if you get your students ready with those fractions, they will be set for 5th grade. So 4th grade, the main focus is fractions. However, you do go over geometry. They will learn lines, points, parallel lines, congruent angles, things like that. They'll learn how to find perimeter. I know our 4th graders love learning how to find perimeter. They will, for the first time, learn their metric prefixes, kilo, hecto, deca, deci, centi, milli. They will learn those, and obviously they'll have story problems as well, getting into more in depth. So that's 4th grade. And then you get to 5th grade. 5th grade, we take those fractions that we learned in 4th grade, and we build upon that, and we move on to decimals. So you can see as a 5th grade teacher, if they did not have a good foundation in fractions, they're not going to do well in decimals. So as you're teaching fractions at the very beginning of the year, getting into the midway point, make sure that you teach it very clearly. Even though we're hoping they already understand fractions, make sure you teach it thoroughly, so that way when it's time to change those fractions to decimals, they really understand. So 5th grade, they're going to learn how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide with decimals. They will learn how to compare decimals, whether or not they have the same amount of places. They will learn repeating decimals. Their mental arithmetic is also going to get more in depth as well. They will have all 4 basic processes in their mental arithmetic. They will learn how to round off whole numbers and decimals. They will learn problem solving and applications, scale drawings, graphs, probability and ratio. And then they will even have a little bit of pre-algebra with squares and square roots. Are you nervous yet? Hopefully not. They're going to love 5th grade math. And then 6th grade is the culmination of all that. So 4th grade was fractions, 5th grade was decimals, 6th grade is percents. So just think about those basic blocks that they've had. They've learned fractions, they learn fractions again, plus decimals, and then they learn fractions, decimals, and then percents. When they get to percents in 6th grade, it is tough. So make sure if you're a 6th grade teacher, you take your time really explaining each step of the process, and they will be set up for success in 6th grade. They also will learn problem solving and application as well with using logic charts, drawing geometric models, using proportions. There is a time in 6th grade where they learn about time zones and latitude. And then when they get to geometry, they are going to learn circumference, diameter of a circle, which is a lot of fun for them. They will be able to bisect angles and use a protractor. So as you are a 6th grade teacher, hopefully this is getting your appetite wet for what you're going to be teaching your students. So we've covered what we'll be teaching. So now let's get into the parts of an arithmetic class. When I think of teaching arithmetic, what am I thinking of in general? What am I anticipating my class looking like? Well, let's start off with this. Most arithmetic classes are going to take you about 45 minutes. And the thing I absolutely love about the Abeka arithmetic curriculum is it is very specific. Now, if you're a free spirit, you might not like this, but I'm not a free spirit. I like a schedule. And so when I look at the curriculum, it tells me even times that it should take 8 to 13 minutes. And so it's so specific, I can successfully teach math and know I did everything I was supposed to do because I'm following the curriculum. Let's start off with something before we get into the main arithmetic class, and that is checking homework. Have you taught arithmetic before? If you have, you can know that sometimes teaching arithmetic gets bogged down at the beginning by checking homework. So have a specific system for checking homework. It should not take you very long. First off, I know in 5th and 6th grade, their homework is done on a separate sheet of paper. So because that is the case, have that pulled out and ready to go before you even start arithmetic. I teach Bible and then arithmetic. So when we're unpacking in the morning, they put their homework underneath their desk and they're ready to go. And then when you check homework, have a specific way that you check it. Say row 1, hold up your homework. Row 2, hold up your homework and check it across the room. First off, for just completion that they have it. And then have a specific way you check it, but vary it up. So for example, sometimes as a teacher, I just read off the answers, they check their own, and then we pass it forward. Do have homework passed forward because you don't want them just turning in the same assignment day after day and saying they did the homework. So have it passed forward. Some days I exchange and grade it, even though it's not really graded. It gives them an idea of if it was a grade, how would they have done? So exchange and grade the homework just to see how they're doing. And then in 5th and 6th grades especially, it's good to have students do homework problems at the chalkboard and then explain to you how they got their answer. This is important because when our students get in high school, high schoolers have to defend those big problems that they did. So get them practicing in elementary. Have them explain how they did their homework. And then occasionally go through the homework and see how they're doing. I know mid-year in my class, students start getting sloppy with their homework. So because of that fact, what I like to do is I go through and I see how many they missed. If they missed more than half, I have a lovely little stamp that says, please sign and return. So I stamp their homework and I send it home. Now when I send it home, I've never once said that they need to redo it or that it was for a grade, but parents see that poor homework and most of the time they make their child redo it and then they send it back to school. And this keeps parents and you as the teacher all on the same page because you know they saw how poorly they did on their homework. So when they do poorly on a test, they are aware, okay, they haven't been doing well on their homework, so no wonder they did poorly on the test. It just keeps all the communication lines open. So we've checked homework, then we get into oral review. So when I think of oral review, I think of the first 15 or so minutes of an arithmetic class. Now, when you're teaching oral review, there's one thing that's very important that you need to do. You need to have a system. Have you looked at the curriculum already and been overwhelmed by the amount of things that you do in oral review? If you are, I have a helpful tip for you. So with oral review, one thing you need to know is typically it takes about 8 to 13 minutes, and even though our curriculum is fantastic, it is not inspired by God. And so because of that fact, we want to try to cover everything in the curriculum, but we don't necessarily have to go in the order that it calls for. So this is what I do every day in my class. I start off with column addition. I have that on my chalkboard, and I do my column addition with the class. And at that time, we're getting our homework out. That gets everybody's homework out by the time I'm done my column addition. One thing you might be wondering if you're a brand new teacher is how fast should your column addition go? Maybe you're thinking I'm going to be too slow, or maybe your expectation is too fast. So just for an example, I would like you to jump into a 4th grade classroom at this time. It's actually going to be me as your teacher that you're going to be seeing, and just see a 4th grade level column addition to give you an idea of the speed that you should be going for your column addition. Students watching, you join with us.
6, 10, 18, 27, 29.
Oh, very good adding. We do write our carrying numbers for this, starting with the carrying number.
2, 2, 9, 11, 15, 18.
Carrying a 1, starting with the 1. Ready?
1, 4, 6, 9, 16, 22.
22 is correct. Read my sum for me, Andres.
2,289.
Hopefully that was helpful to you so you could see the speed of the column addition. So I start with column addition, I check homework if there was homework, and then this is my system. I set aside my flashcards every day the night before in this little divider right here. So after school is over, I go and I pull out my curriculum for the next day, and I put all my flashcards that is called for in my oral review in order, just like this. And I have them laying there. The next thing that I do is I get all the charts that is called for, and I put those on my chalkboard, or I put them on an easel, somewhere where they're out and it's just the ones that I need. So my system every day without fail is column addition, check homework, I go through all my flashcards that are there, and then I go through all the charts that are on the chalkboard. And at the very end, what I do is I pick up my clipboard that I have my curriculum sitting on, and I just check and make sure there's no oral story problems I'm supposed to be giving, and then I'm done. It's that simple. Without fail, I get everything done, and I can get it done in the 10 minutes that it takes because I have a system. So whatever works best for you, make a system so that way you don't have to look at your curriculum because you have it all laid out. And you know if you covered those things, you did cover your curriculum. So I do column addition, flashcards, charts, any oral things, and then I go into the speed drill. So once I go into my speed drill, then that's my time as a teacher to regroup for just a second and think about what I'm going to be teaching. I have a small kitchen timer that's magnetized, and I just always leave it on my chalkboard, and I have the time set. So I tell them, this is what speed drill you're doing. They get started, and then I have about 2 minutes to get my brain in order for teaching. Does that make sense to you? I hope it does. One thing to keep in mind for oral drills is try to play a game each time. Now, it could be around the world. I will tell you this year, because of COVID-19, I'm not planning to play around the world because I don't want the students sitting in each other's desks. So because of that, you might not want to play that game. I'm thinking of playing Giant Step, where they stand at the back of the room. They'll all be spread out. Another game that will work really well at this time is Speedy Sam, because they'll start off normally back to back, but I can just spread out my students a little bit, and they're walking away from each other. So that will work really well. In the front matter of your curriculum, there are tons of games. So look at those and get some ideas of what will work well for you. When you start your students on your speed drill, have some ways to make that easy as well. I keep my speed drills in the back of my classroom in a specific spot, and my back corner student always passes those out before we start arithmetic. So when I say pull out your speed drill, they already have them. And then I tell them what speed drill they're doing, I tell them how much time they have, and then they get started. I do walk around to make sure they're doing the right speed drill, because if you don't, on the days that it's graded, you will have a problem because you'll have one student who didn't do the right one. So walk around, make sure they're all doing the right one. If it wasn't graded that day, when the time's up, just read off the answers quickly and then move on. I have my students put it back under their seat, and then at the end of arithmetic, we pass all of those back. I do this because it doesn't waste time in the middle of class. Now, if it's graded, we do pass those up because I don't want to tempt my students with wanting to change an answer and cheating. So we leave them under our desk unless it's graded, and then we pass those up. So we've done our speed drill, and then it's time to teach the new concept. When it's time to teach the new concept, one thing I want to do is I want to make sure all of my students, their attention is on me, because I want them to understand what I'm about to explain to them. And so because of that fact, what I'm going to do is I try to have some kind of attention getter. Sometimes that's bringing in something, sometimes that's telling a story, but whatever I do, I'm trying to get their attention up on me, so that way when I go to explain it, they're all listening really well. So then I go to explain my new concept. When I go to explain my new concept, I want to think in my mind that I'm teaching it to a 4-year-old. I don't teach 4-year-olds, but I want to think, have I made it easy enough to explain to a 4-year-old? And if so, I'm good to go. I want to show you a really quick video clip of Mr. Howe teaching a division problem. This is on the 5th grade level, and you're going to notice that even though it's 5th grade and they should know how to divide, he goes through all the steps with them. Watch this next clip.
First of all, together, class, we have divide, multiply, subtract, compare, bring down. Thank you. Let me call your attention to what I've got over here. You may have a seat. Let me call your attention. First step is we're going to divide. 7 will go into 24 how many times? Now, I see some of you got pencils out. I don't want pencils out now. I have a stylus out. That's the only pencil you'll need to worry about right now. Just set your pencils aside. We'll get to it in plenty of time. 7 will go into 24 3 times. 3 times 7, all God's children said is? 21. That's my second step. I've multiplied. Third step is I want to subtract. 21 from 24 is?
3.
Compare. Is 3 less than 7?
Yes.
It is. All right. So I'm going to bring down a 5. 7 will go, that's a 5. How about if I don't bring it down as much? Better? Yeah. You like that? Okay. I'm working on my penmanship too. Could you tell? All right. Now, 7 will go into 35.
5.
Thank you. 5 times.
Hopefully that made sense to you. One thing to keep in mind is you don't want to expect that they all understand it the first time you teach it. So how you should do it is teach one problem completely by yourself. They're just watching. And then the second problem, normally curriculum gives you at least 2 problems to put on the chalkboard. The second problem, do again, completely by yourself, but maybe ask 1 or 2 questions. Now, if a student gets that question right, you should be shocked and amazed and praise them. Think about if you learn something brand new. I don't always get it the first time, do you? So don't expect them to get it. They're only 10. So if they get it right, if you ask a question and someone understands it, only the second time you've taught it, praise them, be excited about it. And then the third problem, what I typically do is I look ahead to their math worksheet. I see what is the first problem on their paper, and I have it on my chalkboard. So then I tell the students, take out your piece of paper now, take out your lesson that you've already torn out, and we're going to do this first problem together. This is very essential for our low students because they need to see it and do it with you. So when they pull out their paper and they're working the problem, you're working the problem with them. So it's all together, and if they're lost, they can look up on your chalkboard and see you doing the same exact problem that they're doing, and it will be easy for them. So remember, you're teaching the first one completely by yourself. They should not know how to do it. The second one, maybe ask 1 or 2 questions. The third one, you're doing together. You're asking more questions. They're doing it on the paper. You're doing it on the chalkboard. As you're teaching this new problem, these new concepts, remember the class practice part you do together. So do it with them. Have them do a couple problems and then see what the answers are. It's a group activity. Don't expect them to know how to do it the first or second time they've heard it. I know I was just in a meeting the other day with several adults. and I was explained something and I didn't get it the first time and I had to have it re-explained to me. So remember, these students are 9, 10, 11 years old. They're probably not going to get it the first time, so be patient with them. And then after you teach the new concept, it's time to review. And by review, there's a review section on the worksheet. So as a teacher, this is your time now to have some quiet time to walk around and check their independent work. I like the review section to be when I send my students to the board. What I typically do is I'll say, row 1, you're going to do letter A in section 6. Row 2, you do letter B in section 6. Row 3, letter C. And then give them just a second to work that problem, and then I'll say, all right, row 1, go ahead to the chalkboard. Now this year you might have to tweak this a little bit due to COVID-19, so I know they might not be able to socially distance. So you might want to think that through with spacing out your students. Maybe don't send a whole row, just send 2 or 3 kids. Another thing you can do that I have found is online, there are some individual chalk holders that are really cheap. So if you get those, you can give each child their own chalk holder, so maybe that will help them not use the same chalk. Just some things to think through. This might not be a year where you can really get students to the chalkboard. That might depend on your school. So just something to keep in mind, but I normally would send my students to the chalkboard, and then I go around and I mark on every paper. The way I remember to do this is I have smelly markers. So I keep those smelly markers behind my credenza, and when they start on the review section, I pull out 2 colors and I go around and I draw a star or smiley face on their math worksheet. This allows me to do a couple things. I glance at my book and I see what's the answer. So as I'm walking around, I can see, did they get the answer right? If they didn't, I help them. I mark on their paper. This lets the parents know when they go home that Miss Amsbaugh saw the paper today because it's marked on. And then also, it just lets the kids know Miss Amsbaugh's walking around and she's seeing if I'm busy or not. So that allows them to stay active and stay busy if they are not staying busy. As they're working on the review section, train them to know that they should do the black problems first and the green problems are additional, and that will keep them moving and getting more done. So then in math, it's very important that we use our time wisely because we don't have a lot of it when we boil it all down. So one thing you want to do is you want to follow the curriculum closely. Make sure if it says 8 to 13 minutes that it doesn't take you 25. So try to keep that in mind. One thing I did my first year teaching arithmetic is I started arithmetic at 8:30. And because I wasn't sure on my times, I looked at the curriculum, and let's say it said 10 minutes, I wrote beside that activity 8:30 to 8:40. And when 8:40 hit, whether I was done or not, I stopped. And then let's say the speed drill was 5 minutes. I put 8:40 to 8:45. When 8:45 hit, I had to stop. And then it said teach new concept, 15 minutes. So I put 8:45 to 9 o'clock. And this kept it in front of me so I could keep track of my time. Now I don't need to do that because I have it down pat, but after a while, it makes it much easier for you. So something like that will help you follow curriculum closely. And then you want to keep your students' pencils moving. This is hard to do. Some of your students love arithmetic and they're going to stay challenged no matter what you do. You have others that arithmetic is really hard for them. So we want to do a couple things to help them. First, you want the students to work the first few problems with you, work the class practice together, do them on the board while they're doing them on the paper. This keeps you all together. And then you want to assign sections at a time. For example, let's say section 1 you did with them. Section 2, you want to see how they do? Tell the students, I want you to do section A, numbers 1 and 2. When you're done, put your pencil down and stand up. Well, what that does is you start having students pop up around your classroom, and this puts the pressure on your slower ones to want to finish because they're the only ones sitting. Do you see how something so small, you're not punishing them for being slow? It just creates that pressure to keep the momentum going. Do something like that, or say do problems 3 and 4. When you're done, put your pencil down, and you start hearing those pencils drop, and it lets you know that they're moving right along, and it keeps that time going. And then you want to motivate them to finish the worksheet. Motivate those students. Do they know that if they finish the problem and everybody else is still working, it's okay to flip their paper over and work from the bottom to the top? That's a motivation. They know they can get a little bit ahead. Motivate them that way. And then you want to train your students. There's a few things you should train them to know. First off, you should train them to know that the black problems are what they're focused on. The green problems are extra. So they shouldn't be doing all the green problems and just getting half of the worksheet done. They should do all the black problems and then go back and do the green problems. Do they know that if they finish their math worksheet, they can work on homework? Now you might say, I don't want to do that. Well, it's very helpful because they will work so much faster. One thing you want to do is check and make sure the worksheet is accurate, but do let them work on their math homework. If they finish their math worksheet and it's all correct, let them be blessed for working hard. And that again keeps them motivated and keeps their time flying. And then also, just keep in mind that if you're walking around and you're praising them, that's going to just pick up the speed in general and make them want to work harder. So here's just a few arithmetic tips for you. The first one is you want to occasionally collect worksheets and check them. Now, as a teacher, don't put pressure on yourself to take all their worksheets every day and grade them. That is not necessary. But occasionally, check their worksheets and ask them a few things. Ask yourself, first off, am I happy with the amount of work my entire class got done? Hopefully you are. And then if you are happy, look and say, okay, is there one or two students that could have done more? See who those students are. And then think, where are they sitting in the classroom? Are they right underneath my nose where I can see them? So keep those things in front of yourself. Think through, did I get enough done as a teacher today? Did I give them adequate time to get the review section done? Did I talk too long and they didn't have enough time? So just things like that. So check the worksheets and see how they're doing. And then you want to also, in arithmetic, integrate biblical principles. Do you know we are Christian educators? So when there's a time to, talk about God. I know one time I was talking about multiplying, and we had learned that day about Abraham. So just like Abraham was multiplied by God, his seed was blessed. Well, guess what, kids? Today we're going to multiply. So integrate what you're learning in Bible. I think of 6th grade, when you get to percentages, teach them about tithing, and 10% of what we give should go back to God. Things like that. Integrate those biblical principles. You want to use visual manipulatives when you have a chance. If you're teaching about area, make brownies and cut them up into squares. You will have their attention. If you're talking about squares and square roots, if you take Cheez-Its and you line them up in squares and they count 3 times 3 equals 9 and they can eat them, it makes it much more enjoyable. When you're teaching about a bushel, a peck, a quart, a gallon, bring in those size containers and then save them so you don't have to go look for them every year. But when you have a chance to bring in a visual manipulative, do that. And then you want to integrate higher level thinking. Most of this is done through our story problems. Let's look at a story problem together to give you an idea. Look at letter B here. If Thanksgiving Day comes on Thursday, November 22nd, what is the date of the next Thursday after Thanksgiving Day? Okay, I could just say, what's 22 plus 7? But I'm not going to do that. They have to first think of, okay, Thursday to Thursday, how long is that? And then they have to figure it out. Have your students figure out the answers. Ask them, how do you figure it out? Also, you want to use those problem-solving strategies on the paper. Let's jump in really quickly to a 6th grade class. This is with Mr. Howe on lesson 57, and watch these patterns that they use from Pascal's triangle, and watch how they solve problems.
Could you find a last row of this triangle? And you're going to tell me why or why not. Could you find a last row to the triangle? And you're going to tell me why or why not. That's question number 2. Gavin, what do you think? Can you find a final row?
No,
Why?
because you keep adding and
It would go on in perpetuum. That's a Latin word that means forever and forever.
Hopefully you enjoyed watching that. Again, this is just in our curriculum. We don't even have to think of it. So make sure that you allow those students to explain those things back to you so they're thinking on a higher level. And then when you're grading, make sure you grade quickly. If you have a test given, try to grade it within a day or 2. That's because that will help you know which students need help and what they didn't understand. So finally, let's talk about catching up with our students. Okay, we have some students who are behind. How can we help them? One way, in the back of all our arithmetic books, there are supplemental exercises. So use those to help yourself. Use those as study guides. Go over those extra problems with your students when they don't do so well. Say, hey, let's go over some of these extra problems in the back of your book and we'll get this done. Another way you can help those students is through having a help class. I have a help class from 7:30 to 7:50, 3 days a week in the mornings with my students. And only my weakest students may come, my D and F students. And we go over several things. First, we review our basic facts. We make sure we're going over those flashcards, and I'm giving them extra time to drill those because they need that extra time. And then I want to review the new concepts that they're learning. I want to re-explain because obviously they need help re-explaining those concepts. Have them explain it to you. And then have them individually work and you check it and see if they understand. So give them a problem to do and then walk around and see if they understand how to do that problem. And if they don't, that lets you know, okay, this is where we're struggling. You know, this upcoming school year might be a challenge for us because we're not sure what level our students finished on last year because it was so uncertain. So at the beginning of the year, be patient. Make sure you're aware of which students are struggling and what they're struggling with. And then keep communication open with parents. Do you know there are some parents who really will help their child if you let them know what they need help with? So maybe if they're just struggling with their math facts, recommend that the parents buy some flashcards and practice those at night. They might do it. You never know. If you have extra time at study hall later on throughout the day, sometimes just give the students your flashcards and let them drill with each other. And the more they practice, the easier it will get for them. You know, this was a lot of information about arithmetic, but I hope that as you're listening today, something was able to help you and be a little bit more clear for you. And I hope you have a wonderful year and enjoy teaching arithmetic.